Hey guys, Royal with Nerd Basket here today to talk about One Piece. Hey, hope you guys like the new intro. So it's been a while. I came back though, and I realized I had some failures to answer to. I failed on my promise of making old theory videos on characters and making videos about Sanji during Whole Cake way back when. Honestly, I found a new passion project, as I mentioned earlier. It was Nerd Basket, and with Nerd Basket, we've been getting more into gaming, and I've realized with One Piece, I'd rather do really just videos of each arc that comes out that interests me, and just theorize and predict on that, / give my feelings as time goes on. I love One Piece to death, but I could not theorize on it every day. That's for those who, I wouldn't even necessarily say time, but more passion than me. I hate to admit it, but they have utter passion to review it daily and weekly, or even sometimes monthly. So instead, I will admit my faults and that my passion is more so in something else at the moment, Nerd Basket and gaming. But I love One Piece enough to still review these awesome moments before an arc starts, and that's what I hopefully will continue doing. I'm hoping it sticks. But today I'm here. I'm a little late because the chapters probably already came out, but right now I'm on chapter 1125, so this is spoilers for 1125 and before. Please catch up. So you've been warned, get out if you need. But I would love to review my feelings and thoughts on Elbaf, because a lot of hype is coming. Elbaf, let's get into it. So welcome guys. Where do I start with Elbaf other than the long-nosed elephant in the room, right? We got to talk about the long-nosed Usopp. A lot of people are hyped because they think he's going to be able to get massive power-ups that could rival a lot of people. It rivals Zoro's current and Sanji's current. So I'm here to dial down hype, because we've gone through arc 3 now of hype. We were hype about Sanji, we were hype about Zoro, now we're hype about Usopp. Let's just relax. I'm here to give my entail, because this is hype number 3 on arc number 3, and I have to be honest, this new saga is not feeling like we're going to get there immediately. I feel like it's going to take more time for people to see their characters get to where they want to be. Me personally, Sanji and Zoro aren't even where I would expect them to be back when we were hype about Sanji and Zoro. So overall, I'm whelmed. I'm not over or underwhelmed. I'm just whelmed at Usopp and hopeful growth in Elbaf, but I'm not expecting to make a man out of him Mulan style. We're not with Usopp coming to Elbaf. A lot of people are hyped because he's near the giants, right? But in my mind, in the growth that I've seen in the past, I really don't think Usopp or any of other characters in Luffy's crew match what shonen characters do in their squad, crew, and group. For example, Luffy's crew has a certain growth meter that doesn't necessarily match shonen characters. A lot of times the characters not only complement the main shonen character, the main character, but usually they will also try to shine next to him. In One Piece, it's more so just Luffy himself progressing towards heights unknown and unfathomable for his crew, but his crew do not lack in power either. Luffy, he is trained, but there's one thing that training doesn't really bless these other characters with, nor do they kind of want that blessing. A lot of times they only do it unless necessary. And so in general, I'm starting to learn that with Zoro, Sanji, other characters, that they're not going to have training arcs like Dragon Ball Z. They're not going to have so many life and death experiences on themselves. Luffy himself does as well, But a lot of these other characters, as long as they're surviving and they don't see a need to train to support Luffy like they did 2-year time skip, they're not going to be out here training and lifting weights like Zoro. And that's okay. Like, we can dial it down to Usopp getting power-ups that are relative to his scale of power that he's been gathering throughout the New World. I'm not saying he'll be a slouch, but I'm saying don't expect, in my opinion, Conqueror's Haki, for example, to come out of Usopp, because at the end of the day, these crew members are not meant to be gods like Luffy. They're meant to be just pirates. You know, we're dealing with pirates, Yonko crew pirates, but not all pirates on a Yonko crew, as proven, are Yonko level subordinates. My prediction now for Usopp is simply he's going to find himself as the arc goes on with the Giants, because as we've noticed, Usopp does have a affinity towards them. He loves being with them and traveling with them, especially during his time in the pre-time skip. But now that he's here, I could most definitely see him traveling with them, but I don't expect him to have a brave moment per se. I expect him more so to learn from his failures, and I expect there to be a failure that he'll have to learn from. I don't expect him to be the hero of the story in the beginning. He may actually cause an issue in the beginning that he'll have to fix, and be brave enough to pull himself up by his bootstraps, just like he did in Syrup Village, and prove himself as a warrior that isn't necessarily the bravest. But Usopp will have some failures, but I hope they come with power-ups. And let's get to the fun part, what I think his power-ups are going to be. I got 3 ideas that I think people would love. So let's talk about how the Void Sentry has ties to Elbaf and Wano, correct? So, in general, Void Sentry was years and years ago, but some of those things still have remnants in some old lands like Wano and possibly Elbaf. So, with Elbaf having Void Sentry like things, and even Vegapunk discovering remnants of Void Sentry items that he was able to recreate, it is highly possible that over time, since the Void Sentry items can be remade or studied and created, and some even found in certain lands, I would definitely mark a Void Sentry item as a possible find in Elbaf. Specifically, a Void Sentry hammer. With all the electronics that were made back in the Void Sentry during those ancient kingdoms, I could definitely see Usopp getting a Void Sentry giant hammer wielded by a human. With their electronic advancements, that's most definitely an option. Either the hammer itself will grow and have the power of a giant hammer, just as he has fibbed about before, or it'll more so be a giant hammer that is able to be wielded by all. Either way, Void Sentry technology will allow Usopp to wield a giant hammer. That's just power up possibility 1. And there's no telling what else that hammer could do. Electricity, you name it. A possible Devil Fruit hammer. So I like this idea too. So if we don't have a Void Sentry Mjolnir possible, then we could have instead a Devil Fruit hammer that Lilith helps make with Usopp, if possible. But Lilith is one of the Vegapunks that could access the main brain if Vegapunk Records is still accessible, which it should be, by Lilith, allowing her the knowledge to put a Devil Fruit in a hammer if she doesn't already know how. Then if those two don't work, I still give the idea that a plant could be used by Usopp, possibly even a plant hammer. I mean, it wouldn't do much per se, I'd say, but it's still possible for Usopp to wield a plant hammer. Overall, those 3 hammers I would honestly be happy with. Usopp could definitely use those upgrades, and Void Sentry tech seems to be something that the Straw Hats would definitely benefit from, and I think it would be a great uptick and a mark for them to be even more Yonko status, because it gives them a leg up, and it's good to have a leg up as a Yonko. So speaking of plants, I also want his power up to kind of dive into a different theory. So with this theory, I'm hoping that Usopp and the crew will be able to split apart just a little bit, and if so, let's say Usopp has time to study the floral and plants of Elbaf. If he does, what's stopping him from getting giant plants? I mean, giant plants should definitely be a thing, because everything is giant. If you look at the ship itself, it's giant. It's big enough for a town, city, or a large mansion house. Just on the pillow they were sitting on in the chair. So overall, they should have giant plants that I'm hoping that our friend Usopp could tame. But let's say that's not necessarily true for Usopp and he has a tough time. I'm still hoping he's able to gather some sort of upgrade for Kabuto there to make Kabuto maybe a giant Kabuto, his slingshot. And if that cannot be made giant, maybe he could tame some of the plants and keep them along his side. And if he can't tame a plant or upgrade Kabuto, maybe there's a chance he finds some sort of giant plant that he can tame himself and add to his roster. So he'll have hammers, Kabuto, and one giant plant that obeys him. Possible. And the plant might even be able to transform into a small pot. Either way, I would love that for Usopp, because for him to stay on brand with plants would be nice. Have a hammer. I don't see him discovering a new item or becoming like this Link from Zelda level character with all kinds of items at his disposal. It'd be kind of funny and fun, and that would be very Oda-like to get new items, but it'd be very interesting if he switched it up on us. But for Usopp, that's all I see him getting is bigger plants, a hammer, or possible switch up item from Oda for Usopp, and that's okay. Nothing major doesn't necessarily mean it's anything bad. It just means that the Straw Hats are going to have to get new items over time and train with them over time, however Oda sees fit, until there's a major event that causes them to train and go past their limits. And that's just how Oda kind of does things. So far, I'm keeping my expectations low. I could be wrong, but I'd rather keep them low and be pleasantly surprised than keep them high and be sad that he doesn't have Haki, Conqueror's Haki. All of that is not Usopp, and I don't feel like he would ever have those type of powers or have need for them. I mean, who would have Conqueror's Haki and then be weak as hell in fighting? Who would have Hardening and be weak as hell at fighting? I would love for him, after he's braver, to get more observation Haki. And if I'm wrong and he gets super brave and then gets observation Haki and starts fighting more, oh, I would happily be wrong. But for now, I don't think we're going to get a brave observation Haki Usopp until mid final fight. Maybe Blackbeard, man. Maybe Blackbeard, because it upgrades via fighting. So more battles with Usopp, more Haki training, maybe. But let's talk about some characters that are also supports that we could see more from. Let's sailing with Luffy right now. We got Kuma and Bonnie are still on the same ship as Luffy, as well as Lilith, as I've stated before. These three are on that ship for a reason, and I love it. We know Stussy is somewhere, but for now we're focusing on our beloved three characters that were killing it in the previous arc. Lilith, Kuma, and Bonnie. In short, my feelings towards and predictions towards Kuma and Bonnie are simple. I think Kuma's story-wise at this moment has no reason to stay. Kuma can leave for the Revolutionary Army at any point, and Bonnie has to make a decision. I think right now, in my heart of hearts, she's an honorary Straw Hat, just like Vivi, just like Yamato, all of them honorary Straw Hats. So I'd put Bonnie and Lilith in that same boat, man. That Vegapunk mix with Bonnie are just both. They are both honorary Straw Hats. And in my opinion, Bonnie should stay with Luffy if she can't go with Kuma back to the Revolutionaries. But if they both stay, it's for a reason. And I would predict it's for Dragon. Dragon planning something with Vegapunks and Kuma, but more on that later. So far, that's all I see for Kuma and Bonnie. They're there for a reason. That island is big and Kuma's power is very beneficial for that land. So overall, Kuma could be very beneficial for the Straw Hats to get around. And Bonnie herself, who mirrors Devil Fruits it seems, depending on the power, could also be very beneficial if her power works that way. Also, not to mention, she is also powerful in the idea that she is an extra body that is known as the Worst Generation. Very beneficial to have her on the team as well, and even train her up the same way Luffy would train up. Overall, Bonnie for honorary Straw Hat, Kuma for Revolutionaries. If different, bigger plan at play. Lilith's back and alive, thank goodness. I think the only one in One Piece besides York. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with Vegapunk possibly having a new plan in place for Lilith. But here's the kicker in my mind. I think Lilith knows for sure in her mind that Punk Records is still alive, which means Vegapunk Records still being alive means the crew should hopefully still be alive, but they might be keeping their status a secret from her as a safety precaution, so she doesn't, mount to charge to leave and go find the Vegapunks. Because they know York was the traitor. She cares, but she's not really that evil enough to not go back after them and make sure they're good and protect them. She's just evil in the way of people she doesn't care about. I think the Vegapunks will possibly stay quiet, or if they don't, they'll tell her a plan they have in place. More on that later. But for now, if she doesn't team up with the Vegapunks via her mind, whatever mind thing they send her, mind waves, so if they don't have a set plan for her, then I think she'll either work with Frankie on some electronics or some inventions inside the ship. I think they'll mainly stay near the ship, Frankie and Lilith. But if Lilith doesn't, then I think she'll travel with Robin to learn more about the Void Century and the creations that Vegapunk was studying. Would not be surprised if Lilith and Nami both decide to do that. And also, I'm also selfish in putting Lilith as an honorary Straw Hat now. I don't think she's going anywhere at this point. I don't think there's a point for her to chase down the Vegapunks, especially when she's in contact with them. So overall, put her in, bro. People don't like people like Yamato being an honorary Straw Hat, right? Yamato being that term and not being with the Straw Hats was very sad for a lot of people, because we all said the same thing. She should have been on that ship. But here's my argument. Overall, Lilith and others spreading out for the Straw Hats was not a bad idea at all, because that actually helps the crew to grow and save a lot of areas that could be attacked. In fact, it's a very Yonko move to have your people spread out, so that's great. In fact, especially when it comes time for the final war, and let's say you have a bunch of people already stationed out for Luffy's brigade. So overall they could work from their specific areas towards a common goal. So the way Oda's kind of writing this, there'll be a lot of New World people able to support Luffy from afar and sail to his location if need be. So speaking of Straw Hat Luffy and how this benefits him, let's talk about how this arc could benefit him and the different things that we see. So let's talk about Luffy. Luffy just recently was saved by the Giants, and they called him a specific name. They stopped calling him Luffy. They actually started to debate calling him Luffy or Sun God. And so in my mind, this silhouette guy kind of throws us off. I don't think he's the one that called Luffy necessarily there. I'd more so say it was Loki, his dad, or the captain of the pirates, the giant pirates. And I really think they want Luffy for his powers demonstrated to stop Big Mom and Kaido. That is power, and in New World, power is everything. So they either want his flag or they want him to fly their flag and have his power. That will probably be our main villain, but something is telling me they wanted Luffy for a reason, and we're gonna find out from the Royals or from the captain of the Giants. It's when they get Luffy to the island, we'll actually try to train them and capture them. I think they're going to put them in a situation that they can't say no to, and I really think they will. Luffy's going to be faced with a hard decision of bowing down to these giants in some way, or being free and running away from Elbaf for a little bit, which will probably split them up. In Elbaf is so big, I wouldn't be surprised if Oda had no choice but to split them up somehow, and this was the only way, by putting a hard issue in front of them that they may have to dip out of, or Kuma may have to save them from, by Kuma pressing on them to go a certain distance away. All possibilities, that way they can cover and we can see a good bit of Elbaf before we leave. But yeah, that's what I see coming. A possible split up, training, and time skip. I know what I said about training way earlier, but in general, that's the only way I could see us covering that much ground. There might be another way, but we'll see. You have to make everyone giant or something. Now, I think a time skip is possible because these are the hints I've seen. We have a trainer waiting for Luffy. We have Law and Kid knocked out just like Luffy was versus Kuma, gone via a higher power that they were not ready for. And with Kid and Law being basically rivals to Luffy, that's the way Oda wrote them, it won't seem that way, and they'll be seen as unnecessary characters if they can't keep up with Luffy. So if they have a time skip now, Luffy could learn more about his powers. Law could gather a team, Kid can gather a team, and continue causing mayhem in this reckless world where Emu is and others are disturbing the status quo. All of that could happen and change things up. So that's my hope if there's a time skip, because Elbaf is too much to cover in a fast pace. The new wars that are about to happen could also gain our attention between the revolutionaries and the possible holy knights, god knights. And while that's happening, Luffy can train, Kid and Law can train, and others can continue to gain land and protect land, while this restless Emu continues to stir up trouble with the revolutionaries and the world. For that to happen, we kind of need a main villain, to kind of keep Luffy and company's attention, because now we have to say, okay, with Emu doing that, what are the Straw Hats going to do besides train? Because they usually need a reason to train. Here's my advice. I think the reason they'll train is because this arc will have a villain that will cause them to feel the need to train and or this arc will give them a reason to train via the quote-unquote villain. It may not even be a villain, it may just be a plot point to get them through. But the main villain of Elbaf, I think, will be the giant royalty, whoever Loki is near, or Loki, or it could be Gorosei. It could be a 5 elder that comes and Luffy has to come and defend against a 5 elder soon. Both are possible, but I think it'll be kind of built like Skypiea, where Luffy's gonna touch down, find a problem, and have to learn how to fix it, man. And he'll have to learn the island and continue to go through it until he learns it. And then after that, he'll battle the main villain, which will be the royalty or the Gorosei, or both. But I feel like that would be a better villain than Big Mom or Kaido. I knew that might come up, because some may say, why not Big Mom or Kaido? Big Mom and Kaido have no reason to enter that land. Big Mom and Kaido are also not great villains at this point. I love them to death. They're great characters. They can go toe to toe with Luffy for sure, and have. But them together entering an enemy land like the Giants is actually not that beneficial. And if it's anything like we've seen in during the beginning of Egghead, it's not going to be something we all enjoy watching to a full extent, because Luffy won't really have that mega challenge. He'll actually be on the higher end, because the Giants, himself, and possibly that teacher who understands hockey will all go against Big Mom and Kaido, and possibly be strong enough to overtake them. Big Mom knew that was the one group that she couldn't tame, and Kaido himself already knows him versus Luffy. It took a lot to bring down Kaido, and he'll already be kind of injured. He's not going to be, full health coming back. I doubt it. And if they are, do you want some half-beaten Big Mom and Kaido going to the Giants Island and getting mollywopped by a group? I don't. Especially when they have bigger fish to fry. Blackbeard just took pudding, and Kaido has no other pirates on his side. So even if Big Mom brings the Big Mom pirates, it's still gonna be rough on them all, because they could cut them off at the shore, and they could also ruin a lot of their progress and effort via just some simple Gear 5 shenanigans. I mean shenanigans, bro. With Bonnie in tow. Bonnie and Luffy Gear 5 double ruin it. And Luffy just got done battling Marines, Seraphim, Lucci, and more, including 5 elders at once amongst the team. I would argue that a Big Mom and Kaido versus 5 Gorosei are about tit for tat, but it doesn't give you more either way. But I'd say that the 5 Gorosei were fun to watch compared to Big Mom and Kaido fighting Luffy again. Overall, Big Mom and Kaido need to stay out of that. Let's talk about the mystery man and who is he. So with that main villain talk and a possible time skip, who is it going to be, this mystery man that wants Luffy and said he'll be waiting for him? Well, he could be the guy that was the leader of the Giants. He doesn't seem to be a giant. He could be, but he could be just the guy who was the leader and told them to go grab him. It's time. But that's kind of a boring theory to me. I'd rather it would be a Roger pirate, really, like a Crocus situation type, or Rayleigh. But what if it was a Rocks or Whitebeard pirate? That would be even more interesting. But I'll tell you who I really want it to be. Could you imagine one of Joy Boy's pirates' descendants that were tasked with passing the knowledge to the new Joy Boy actually was waiting for Luffy all this time? That's my theory there. We could have a Joy Boy descendant, a Joy Boy pirate descendant. So someone on Joy Boy's pirate crew, possibly the Joy Boy historian, taking notes of everything, passing down the knowledge of the Nika down to the next Nika. That would be fun. And he would teach them about the poneglyphs, Joy Boy's hockey, possibly even more. But that's my real hope. A Joy Boy historian, possibly a Wano Kuni resident that passed down the knowledge from Wano Kuni to Wano Kuni, because he has Wano Kuni like clothes on. It didn't seem like he had Viking clothes. Just passing down knowledge and then waiting on Elbaf for him to finally receive his necessary message. And you know what's crazy? What's even crazier is the mystery man really could just be someone Shanks left to test Luffy. Because it's Elbaf, I think, don't quote me, has Shanks ties to it. Possibly even flying his flag. So it would be funny if Shanks left someone there for Luffy and had a plan for him all along. And Shanks knew, oh, it's time. And that's why he was, there. That one's the most likely in my mind besides the leader of the Giants, but a Joy Boy historian that was passed down years after years of knowledge to finally find Joy Boy and do like an Avatar moment of we must train you. That is fun. But that's Luffy. Anywho, let's talk about the other characters in Luffy's crew, huh? Like Robin. I think Robin will find Saul and learn more about the poneglyphs, of course, possibly even Emu in the last poneglyph. So it might be funny. We might have a situation where Luffy and Robin both learn about the last poneglyph and Emu at the same time. But I think one of them will learn about it. They will learn about it either through their teacher or through the books. However, I don't think Robin's gonna be let off the hook that easy to just waltz in. I think something is going to stop her, and then she'll have this satisfying moment where she's like, "Whew, I finally got to the library and Saul helped me through it." So her and Saul may have to team together with Lilith just to get through some BS that the Giants or whatever else person puts them through, just so they can read the poneglyphs, like a test of are you worthy type shit, and what will you do with this knowledge? Will you just give it to Emu, or are you down for the cause type shit? I think the last poneglyph, when they find it, will be under Emu's watch, because why else has no one else found the last poneglyph? It's either under their watch, the Holy Knights / gods, or under Marine watch. I think the last poneglyph will be a bitch to get. It won't be a bitch to find, it'll be a bitch to get. Let's talk about Frankie. I think he's staying near the ship. I think Zoro and Sanji are pretty much going to be either on their own journey or with Luffy. And Sanji may try to break off with the girls, and Chopper and Brook will be on their own journey. Possibly with some of the Giants like Usopp. But I don't see them having major roles. Maybe if there's a sickness or a musical. But I feel like they will be more so just traveling to travel and fighting to fight. And may cook to cook. No real biggies. I kind of put them in the side character category of the manga arc this time. Now let's talk about my hopes. Those were my hopes for Elbaf. Now I'm just gonna get into some small stuff, side things I've noticed. I should probably save for another video, but that's my idea of Elbaf. And since we've hit kind of like 30 minutes, this may be a second video, or I may put them together.